Right, I was going to start today with a nice, big, and inspirational beginnings, but I couldn't think of one. So I asked ChatGPT, I said, I need a nice 1-minute intro speech to inspire educators on the need to learn AI fluency in the style of Dr. Seuss. Oh, I can actually get the audio to do it.
Here's a playful Dr. Seuss-style speech to inspire educators about learning AI fluency. Oh, the places you'll go and the things you'll create if you learn about AI before it's too late. It's here and it's growing, it's clever, it's quick, helping us teach, solve problems and click. In classrooms, in offices and libraries too, AI is reshaping what learners can do. It can grade, it can guide, it can sort and explore. It can help you, dear teacher, and so much more. But don't fear the unknown or think it's too hard. You don't need to be some kind of tech wizard or bard. Just start with a question, a curious heart, and step by step you'll master the art. So dive into learning, be bold and say, I'll try something new, starting today. For the future is calling, so let's lead the way. With AI in our toolkit, we'll seize the day. Would you like any tweaks or a different tone?
I couldn't get it working this morning on this computer, but if you use it on yours, you can actually have a conversation with it. But my first question is this: did I create this, or did the AI create this? Now, without me, it wouldn't have happened. So did I create this, or did the AI create this? Who claims ownership? Who claims authority? Well, that's what we're going to answer today as you all become fluent in Gen AI. So I'm going to be looking at these 4 key areas to you. I'm going to be touching on all of these. Each of them have their own depths, which we'll be covering through various things throughout the year. But understanding what AI technologies is where we begin, the ethics and the safeguardings of it, how we apply it in education, and some practical AI use. So, first of all, let me begin by first explaining what is generative AI. And the thing that you have to understand is, unlike traditionally, we had what was a rule-based program system. Do this, then output this. But now we have a system where a computer program can learn vast amounts, actually the whole of the internet, and make reasonings and pattern recognitions of that. All generative AI is a system that has recognized patterns and then can generate text, audio, images, and video. That's all that this technology is. So it's just a sophisticated pattern recognition system rather than a thinking being. And one of the things that you must avoid doing is anthropomizing AI. And this can lead to students overestimating its capabilities, forming unhealthy attachments. We want students to see AI, I want you to see AI as a powerful tool, not a friend or foe. I'm not going to go through this, but throughout this presentation, there's lots of bits where you can go deep diving, and Ben Garside from Raspberry Pi Foundation does an excellent talk on why we shouldn't anthropomorphize. This is possibly one of the key reasons why we shouldn't anthropomorphize. This is actually not even the first occurrence of this as well. And it is kind of the situation where we should kind of ask our students, do you have a relationship with an AI? If you are feeling suicidal, come speak to a human. This is actually becoming a bit more common because people have put this anthropomization into it.
Now this story is very difficult.
Sorry. But on the flip side, here is hope for humans. And the wonderful Ben Affleck sort of sums this up, I think, in a really great way.
Imitative verse, that sounds Elizabethan. It cannot write you Shakespeare. The function of having 2 actors, or 3 or 4 actors in a room, and the taste to discern and construct that is something that currently entirely eludes AI's capability, and I think will for a meaningful period of time. What AI is going to do is going to disintermediate the more laborious, less creative, and more costly aspects of filmmaking that will allow costs to be brought down, that will lower the barrier to entry, that will allow more voices to be heard, that will make it easier for the people who want to make goodwill huntings to go out and make it. Look, AI is a craftsman at best. Craftsmen can learn to make stickly furniture by sitting down next to somebody and seeing what their technique is and imitating. That's how large video models, large language models, basically work. A library of vectors of meaning and transformers that interpret it in context, right? But they're just cross-pollinating things that exist. Nothing new is created.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet, and really, in order to do that, look, craftsman is knowing how to work, art is knowing when to stop. And I think knowing when to stop is going to be a very difficult thing for AI to learn because it's taste.
And I think that same principle works for us as teachers. Probably not taste, but our teaching instincts. I don't think that can be replaced by an AI. So let's start with the first activity. Let's get jumped in on your devices. Depending on your experience, if you feel like if you've never touched generative AI before, do start at the acquire stage. If you've had a little bit of a go into the deepen. And if you feel that I'm ready to be stretched, then go to create. So this is how I've differentiated the activity. Starting off, those of you that are wanting to start from the beginning, go to ChatGTP, which doesn't actually necessarily need you to log in. That's something to remember with your students as well. And ask it to explain how you work to a 14-year-old student. What I want you all to do is to come up with an explanation that you can use to explain generative AI to your students. For those who want to get a little bit further, Google Gemini is available. I was just trying to get the technical thing of it working on the phone, but you go to Google, you just type in Google Gemini. You can either use that through a browser or log in. If you log in with the school account, I'm just wondering, George, do you think has that been ready yet?
I think it should work.
It should work. You can use that on the phone. This next task, explain how Gen AI works with an example without anthropomizing it. And if you want to go further, go to an AI tool called Claude and create a subject-specific analogy explaining AI's pattern recognition. I'm going to give you, I think, 2 minutes to do that. And what I've done is I've gotten an AI to make some music for us for that. Give it a second. So the anthropomizing debate there's a very big debate now going on with AI fluency of whether to do it. It sounds so normal. It's like, okay, if I make it sound like it's a human being, and this is how the marketing is done with a lot of these AI organizations because they want people to pick this up, but it has huge side effects. So anthropomizing is the idea of making it seem human when it's not and giving it human-like qualities. Hopefully you've all had a go. I'm going to move on and say that this is the beginning of the task. We've got another task that will link to this. But if I could get you all just to pause a moment on that and have a look at the next phase of where we're going. The next topic I just wanted to go on to is ethics and safeguarding. It's a big topic. I'm briefly going to start off with this. There is this idea that actual generative AI kind of makes up things. And it's wrongly, in my opinion, it's wrongly called hallucinations. I mean, if we're talking about not anthropomizing it, then we can't say that it's hallucinating because that would still be the same thing. But technically, that's what people calls it. And it can come up with the wrong information. It will just make it up. Something like it could say that 1 + 1 = 11. I mean, that kind of does seem reasonable, right? If you had no concept of numbers and stuff like that. So that same concept happens. And actually, because all of this data is trained on the internet, and because the internet is relatively biased and contains a lot of the misinformation its data is also a little bit biased. So we have to be very, very careful about the accuracy of this. And it's not a matter of just fixing one sort of thing. It's a really deep-rooted problem with the technology. So you have to take that into consideration. And we must also do some really key things. Avoid putting personal data and personal information of our students and ourselves into the generative AI tools, because that whatever input you put in is then fed back into the system to keep training it, for it to be kept on learning. But it's not enough for us to try and stop our students using it. I think that's a completely wrong thing to do. And actually, we need to be more transparent. We need to be actually using it in the classroom, in front of our students, to show them what it is to actually the best practices. The more you use it, you'll start picking up on some very key things. When you start getting work handed in and suddenly it's in an American English, and it's like, why is this in an American English? What have you suddenly started talking in American for? And that's kind of the key thing. It doesn't matter how many times you ask generative AI, it will keep on giving it to you in that format. So you'll start seeing these little things. But then when you start talking about its use, you can then build that academic honesty, that sort of discussion, and actually start thinking about, well, how can this tool actually enhance or augment the teaching and the learning that I'm already doing? And if you're thinking, oh, I could just use an AI detector, they are considerably unreliable. And either giving you a false positive, like you may not have used AI, and the detector may say, oh, this has all been written by AI. They're not as reliable. But that's what I say. But the JCQ have given out this guideline, very simply saying that if someone takes a work from generative AI, claims it as their own, that is cheating. I mean, that's fairly understandable. And if a student does use generative AI for their pieces of work, then they should reference that. And you can actually direct reference the chat that's just happened in there, or the sources that comes through it. Talking about sources, what I'd like you to now do is the next part of this. You have just used generative AI. You may have used ChatGPT. How do you know what was written is accurate? So the next phase is I would like you to ask, ask in ChatGPT, this is quite cute how they do it. Ask for the sources from the response in the previous task. Ask it, where are the sources? Where did you get this information from? If you want to go to that deepen stage, take whatever response you got and start using a tool called Perplexity AI. Perplexity AI, have a go at using that one. And if you want to go further, what guidelines can you create that are student-friendly? Looking at the JCQ guidelines, have another go at that. I'll give you another 2 minutes to have a little go and see if you can find how your responses are credible. Okay. Are there any questions? Any discoveries? Just to let you know that the music was made in about 30 seconds using an AI generator. I literally said, my name's Cameron Mohammed. I'm going to be doing a talk about AI fluency to teachers at Fulham Cross Academy, FCA. And within 30 seconds, it gave me about 3 tracks. So that's a really interesting tool. I think that's from Suno, S-U-N-O. Is there anything anybody would like to share or feel confident to share, or something they find quite ridiculous or quite informative at the moment? Anybody? Yes.
Just like I did the sort of the deeper one, just I use ChatGPT a lot for letters and just all that type of stuff. And I put the task in, and it gave me a lot of quite detailed. So I said, can you just write it in 10 short bullet points for a 14-year-old? And it then changed all the text into 10 really clear and concise bullet points, which you then could give to a 14-year-old.
Yeah. Put your hands up, how many of you use Perplexity? A couple. Yeah, you'll notice with Perplexity AI, from the get-go it says, these are the sources of information that I've taken this from. You can then select and deselect sources of information for that as well. And I was just talking to Mike about the GCQ guidelines. I do feel there's going to be a breaking point where we will turn around and be like, these Gen AI tools will become acceptable, referenced, and usable in assessment processes. Say, for instance, coursework, say, for instance, in examinations. And I give the analogy of when calculators were first in place and how everyone said, oh, we're not going to be able to do arithmetic anymore, this is going to be a disastrous. And then what education did was they created a maths paper with a non-calculator and a calculator paper. So have that in your mind as we go forward in education. And neatly onto our next topic is the application of AI in education. We have our teaching cycle here. These are all the little parts that make up our role on a daily, monthly, termly basis. And AI has the power to augment and enhance the educational experience, not replace it. It is able to automate routine tasks, and it gives greater scaffolding and stretch challenges. Have you ever got that moment when you're in the classroom and that kid has completed all the work and you need something and you have nothing? Try just using ChatGPT to it. Like literally type and say, I want a quick question here, an activity for someone to do, and then put it on the screen. And it's remarkable. Of course, check the accuracy of it before you then set the task. I really recommend that. But it's really great. I've done that with coding challenges as well, where kids have flown through and I've got a coding task, done it. ChatGPT does a nice new feature that you can export it as a slide immediately. You can say, can you export this into a presentation? Say, can I have this as a slide once it's done? But I think you have to start paying after a few clicks of that. But then you can personalize education through the use of custom chatbots. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. You can assist informative assessment using real-time feedback to students, identifying learning gaps, customizing learning pathways. And you can use all of that. This is why I think we're talking about this, is that this Gen AI tool is a horizontal effect. It has the power, this tool, to affect every single part of what we're working on as an organization. So I'm going to give you 1 minute. You might not even need to do this, but just think of one task that you're going to be doing this week. One of the tasks that you're going to be doing. You might, and then I'd like you to get a Gen AI to start doing it. I would probably lean to most people to this one here. Ask it to plan a topic. You may have already planned the topic in a lesson, but just for your own, just for the sake of the exercise, ask it to plan a topic that you're going to be doing this week. Just say, I'm planning to teach this to a group of year 9s. If you want to go a bit lighter, you can ask us some questions. If you want to go a bit deeper, you could ask it for a grading and feedback on a topic, as well as what a good one looks like, what a bad one looks like. I'm just giving you 1 minute to have a go and have a go on that. And then I'm going to show you something after that. One, as I talk about the practical AI uses. There is this concept called prompting. So when you speak through these chatbots and these Gen AI tools, you are prompting this large database something. And what we've been doing at the moment is what's called one-shot prompting. So if I said to you, I want you to write an essay on a topic, you're typing it, you're not allowed to use backspace, and you're not allowed to edit anything that's been written, and you've got 30 seconds to do it. And that's exactly what we're asking these Gen AIs. They're literally, you'll see the screen, the words coming screen, they're literally doing that. They're not going back and editing that. We call that one-shot prompting. And you can imagine, even if you asked a human to do that, it would be terrible. If you're asking an AI, the output's not that great. It might look great at the moment, but I assure you, when you've now done a bit more in-depth looking, especially if you did the plan, the topic activity, you'll notice that this isn't as good as, or there's something a bit not as great as it should be. And so what we can do is a concept called prompt engineering. I'm going to introduce to you a framework. There's a lot of different frameworks, all with the same ideas and the same thoughts. But I'm going to start you off with this one called PrEP. And that falls into this concept of propose, as in introduce what it is you want to do. Give it a role. I want you to act like an expert GCSE teacher in English literature on a book of Jekyll and Hyde. I find that's my favorite one to make sure I'm using, is giving it a role. Be very explicit and tell it how it wants to be done. I've got an example on here. What I want you to think of that, this is not like a stringent framework, but are levers that you can use in your day-to-day use of Gen AI tools to make it, to give the outputs much better. And know that this is a chat, a conversation that you're having, so you're constantly going back and forth. So I like that bit there, but I'm not quite sure. I really like to change it. Or could you explain this bit further? So for example here, we are doing a geography lesson. So create a full lesson for my year 10 students. Give it a role. You're an expert GCSE geography teacher. And then be very clear what you are expecting it to do, and most importantly, how you want that information to present it. I always go a reading age below, because most students, well, you'll know from your data, but most students are not up to their reading age. Tell it how many lessons, how long you want it to do, because ChatGPT and all these Genis, they love to just go on and on and on. Even telling it what sort of tone you want it to be in as well are quite fundamentally important. So have a go at doing that. How am I for time? I've got 5 minutes, haven't I? Okay, so obviously I'll share these slides to you and I'll take questions at another time. I just want to wrap up with this simple my summing up and concluding. That framework, there are so many different frameworks, but that framework comes from Dan Fitzpatrick, who's a great educator in this field. And he says, outsource your doing, not your thinking. And I think that's the philosophy you need to have when you're using this. He actually has a much further, actually there's 8 levels to this feedback. This is worth looking at. I'll share these slides with you. So to conclude, we have outstanding opportunities here. Oops, daisy. But a number of limitations. It's great at tasks that you are less mediocre at. It saves you times, and it's great for just asking ideas. Just say, like, I want 10 ideas on how to cover this topic, or questions relating to a topic. There are so many tools, and they change so rapidly, and it couldn't cover it in a single session. But it's the process of constant improvement that will lead to your success. For the last few decades, we've been living through a digital information age with the rise of the internet. Now we are beginning the digital intelligence age. What does this mean for us in education? Is that we need to be AI ready with oncoming waves. So this is why I suggest it's better to learn to surf than to stand on the beach when these waves come. But most importantly is that we need to remember our humanity. I don't know if I have enough time. I'm going to just share.
Turn your documents into engaging audio discussion.
One thing I'm going to say is to deal with this concept of hallucination, stuff like that, there's a tool called Notebook LM where you can put the sources directly in, be PDF, websites, YouTube videos, and then you can then ask that questions to then generate content. It also creates audio outputs like a podcast. And I tell you, it is most remarkable thing. The output are literally 2 people talking with humor, and it's completely AI generated. A lot of tech entrepreneurs are doing this, where they put in like their week's worth of articles that they want to read, they shove it in, they get a 20-minute podcast, and they listen to that now. It's a remarkable thing, and I think in education it's worth trying. It's not available for anyone under 18, so our students can't use it, but you can use it and that.
We're preparing a demo for 60 minutes to show people what ChatGPT can do with voice mode vision.
We're about to show you a technological innovation that could one day change the way every child in every school in America is taught.
The location is spot on. The brain is right there in the head. As for the shape, it's a good start.
Don't patronize me. It's an online...
Okay, so talking about chatbots, but having the actual thing. So if any of you know about Khan Academy, a long time ago, Sal Khan now created a chatbot called Khan Migo with all the guardrails where you can have students on there talking with the chatbot, and they won't give the answers, it would guide them to the solutions like a good tutor would do. There is a nice 13-minute long documentary from 60 Seconds about it. It's very interesting to see. Because what's happened now is in Arizona this September, they're going to be opening the first AI-driven school. The AI, it's kind of weird because it's like in the morning you do 3 hours of this tutor workshop with chatbots and stuff like that, and then in the afternoon you do more human-based activities, is the rough idea. This is where things change so rapidly. I'll skip that bit. That's interesting. But also, a large amount of this are no-code or less-code solutions. So like for me, I've always wanted to turn some of my worksheets into interactive games. And what would take me a couple of weeks with full concentration and no distractions is achievable. I could just go to Claude AI and it's done in 30 minutes without me doing actually any coding. Just literally me saying, I would like this done. And if I construct a nice prompt for it, it produced some great results. And then say, okay, change this and improve on this. I mean, there are 8-year-olds making Harry Potter apps that are being successful in the same idea. So what I'm trying to get you to think about is that there isn't a limitation except your imagination. How am I for time? I will finish with one last thing. I'm going to skip a lot of this. And I'm going to show you this. Go back a bit. All of that was 100% AI generated. All of that was done with off-the-shelf tools, not £10,000 budgets. Actually, the products in there don't actually even exist, but people are now demanding for it. So the model has flipped now. You could you can make the advertisements for it. You can make the advertisements before you make the product to see if people will buy it and then sell it that way. This also is remarkable when it comes to the selling of ideas, but it also is incredibly dangerous as well. In the summer, this is my last point, I'll finish and then I'll hand over to Angela. In the summer, we had a really serious incident where one bit of social media convinced people to go burn down asylum seeker hotels. That was really significant, and that was all powered and fueled by social media. If you now compound that with the concept of generative AI or misinformation generated on that, and people in the and this is where we're at now, that truth is no longer an easy commodity. And as teachers, we're pretty much the final line in terms of telling students and telling people what actually is right or wrong. It's a really significant and important thing that we get our kids to be critical thinkers, criticals of this technology, and the only way they can become critical of it is by understanding it, and the only way they can understand it is them seeing us use it. Never has a technology made more of a significance to the human species. So I hope you all take this on and try and apply more generative AI, and we'll be doing various different activities throughout the year. Thank you.